Welcome to Humankind Cultures of Africa, and when you load up the DLC pack, the first culture that you're likely to run into will be Bantu in the ancient era, an expansionist culture recently added to Humankind, and with the exception of maybe the Swahili, it's one of the more complicated and powerful cultures in this DLC pack, particularly on the powerful side. In this video, I'm going to take you through my tips, tricks, and strategies for them. We're going to look at what makes the Bantu special, and also who you might want to play after them to complete their wonderful set. Without any further ado, let's jump straight in. And here you can see what the Bantu actually offer. I'm not going to dwell on this too much at the start of the video, because it will be a reoccurring theme throughout, of course, but just to quickly cover our bases, their trait, which you'll keep for the rest of the game, provides +2 influence per number of adjacent empires. Basically, how many neighbours you have, +2 influence. Their unique district is a little bit of a cop-out. Similarly to the Huns, it essentially replaces the outpost. How does it replace it? Well, the only thing it does really is provides an additional 10 food on adjacent cities. Pretty useful. Their unit is what really differentiates them though. You'll notice at 13 combat strength, it's very weak, but it's a spicy one. So let's roll through and take a look at Bantu. First up, you have their pioneers, and we should start with them because they are spicy as heck. They're a nomadic unit, so they gather food and multiply through fighting and ransacking. At 13 strength, they are the weakest unit in the era, really. You can't get much worse. 4 movement points and 1 attacking range. They're a melee unit. Their other ability, though, which is unique to them, really, is Pioneer. Collecting Pioneer curiosities creates new units. These units have special curiosities, and when you find them, you'll spawn new units out from them. The other thing to note that you can see I'm mousing over here at the moment is claim territory. This is the other spicy thing about the Bantu. Their unique unit, which upgrades directly from your nomadic units from the Neolithic era, cannot place outposts spending influence. Instead, you need to build an army of 4 of them through fighting or ransacking, and then you can expand 4 of them to create an outpost. It might sound bad, but bear with me, I think it's outstanding. First up, though, we need to think about, well, how do we actually multiply these units? How can I get enough to actually found cities? And what should I do with them once I've got them? The first way is obviously to fight mammoths. Look at that, 20 food. That is a free unit, and don't forget, it's your unique unit that has unique discoveries along with it. What I would suggest you do is kind of similar to what I'm doing here. Break them up into smaller groups and fan out. Your curiosities are everything. You'll see here, wild berries on this river, another 20 food, another free unit. Here, my pioneers are almost spoilt for choice. Make sure you use your movement points to the max, and because they're a little stronger than the nomadic unit that they replace, you have to remember you're not in the Neolithic era anymore. These units are stronger. Use them to ransack, again, another 20 food and 20 gold. While you're out exploring, you may also discover some of the new wonders, like Mount Kilimanjaro, which was added as part of the Cultures of Africa DLC pack. Mount Kilimanjaro provides some food, but crucially, really, as you're moving around, you'll be able to pick these things up and further increase your, what I argue is already pretty outstanding influence balance. It's also worth noting in your civics that while you may still take the normal path there, you might want to go for codified laws here, because you're not actually spending influence, at least not early on, to create your outposts. So why not grab codified laws and make it cheaper to merge them with your cities? It's a little difference from the standard playthrough, so I thought it was worth highlighting. You are also, of course, an expansionist culture. Don't forget to use your free under one banner expansionist ability, and you'll be able to steal outposts from the enemy, providing you can stand on it for 6 turns. Take care with that. And make sure that you're splitting up your armies of 4 as well, as you go around and explore. You want to make sure you at least have 1 free spot in case you generate enough food to spawn another unit. You cannot multiply over 4. What you can do, though, once you've found a city, is spend influence, like I just did there, to bring your units back out. So while you require 4 of your unique units to create an outpost or a city, once it's created, once you've turned it into an outpost, you can then spend influence to get your units back. More often than not, it can be worth doing this at least once. Don't forget, though, you'll want to be making cities as well. They are so cheap, relatively for the Bantu, because you're not often spending influence to create your territories. So cheap. So do get out there with your unique units, grab all of these wonderful curiosities, load up on influence that in general you're not really spending as much of, although I would still prioritize the pottery workshops, because all of this will come together and allow you to basically build very fast cities. You'll feel like you're doing nothing, and then you'll hit this point. You'll find volunteers, you'll get warriors, and then you'll be away. Now, why do these warriors matter if my unique unit is so fantastic and flexible and saving me a lot of influence? Well, because there may be a time where you want to claim a territory normally, where you don't have 4 of your uniques around, particularly as you start to move through and focus on the next era. So it can be very useful to either build or find some warriors like this, because like I've said already, you'll probably find you've got a reasonable balance of influence in the bank that you just haven't spent, particularly at the start of the game, before you've been able to build any warriors. And of course, your expansionizing will help with this as well, claiming territories with natural wonders. However else you're going to gather your influence, it's also important to note, of course, that your trait is providing you with +2 influence per neighbor. It's not per neighboring tile, it's not per trade route, it's literally just how many empires are on your border, whether they're there once or 10 times, it doesn't matter. It doesn't provide a great deal of influence. I think it's the weakest point about the Bantu. But what may be one of their strongest is what you're watching right now, fighting. You might be scratching your head thinking, wait, Jumbo, didn't you just say before that the unit was weaker than every single other one? How is it stronger? And I think the answer is simply numbers. These nomadic units multiply like crazy, and they have their own discoveries. You can pull them out of outposts that you've created with them at a pretty cheap cost with influence, or construct more of them in your cities like normal. I was able to, in back-to-back-to-back games, 3 times in a row now with Bantu, absolutely obliterate my neighbors by sheer volume. Players who played Humankind from the very start of the game, back when the Neolithic era was a lot more overpowered and less balanced than it is now, will feel right at home, I think, with the Bantu. The Bantu is kind of capturing the original nomadic essence of Humankind's Neolithic era and bringing it through into the entire ancient era. You can, of course, also choose to just pillage things as you go. You don't have to use your expansionist ability like I was eyeing up there. You could just pillage, ransack, and take a whole load of food and gold with you, which you can use to build districts in your cities. Look at that. 40 gold and 40 food. That's 2 units and 40 gold to spend on my city. Not a bad deal. The key here is to flex your expansionist muscles any way you know how, and milk it for money and stars. You might then turn to the Swahili or the Garamantes next. They'd both be reasonable picks. The Garamantes will help you build up your food supply from sterile terrain, while the Swahili, with this very powerful harbour, more on that in another video, will help you build great sea defences. But you might also want to consider these guys, the Persians, as a slightly off-better but powerful pick. Why? Not because of their good unit or palace, but actually because of the +2 city cap. You may find you end up wanting or having a lot of cities, particularly as you expansionize, and I think this plus the stability is kind of a no-brainer next pick if you don't want to surge through into the late game and end up with a ridiculous number of cities and having to do what I did here and merging them together. Now, granted, I didn't have to do this, I actually chose to, but it's an important consideration to bear in mind. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.